to 26 participants, so I'm sure there's a couple that will join us as we go on, but let's get started. We're going to start with some introductions, and I'll start. I'm Barton Brierly. I'm the planning manager for Ogden and the chair of this technical committee. And we'll go through the a roll here to see who's here, and I did a random alphabet generator so we determine which part of the alphabet we start on, and my random alphabet started at Z. So we're gonna we don't have any Z, so we're gonna start at actually B, Bountiful. Do we have anyone here from Bountiful? How about Box Elder County? Anyone from Box Elder?
We have Mark Bradley with Brigham City representing Paul Larson today.
Okay. Anyone from Bragg?
They're okay with our language. They had one thing to add that we're open to it. And they use the park area for their state.
Yeah.
I think we should all try to join this conversation, just see what happens. No, never mind.
How about anyone from Centerville?
Yes, Kevin Campbell, Centerville City Engineer.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Clearfield.
Problem for our construction and function of the basin and
Spencer took off here already. Come on. How about Clinton? Anyone from Clinton? Davis County?
Chanel Flores, Community and Economic Development.
Thank you, Chanel. Farmington.
put in this agreement.
I'm here, David Peterson.
Critical. We can
Far West. Fruit Heights. Harrisville.
Glenn Gamble, Harrisville Public Works.
Thank you for joining us. Hill Air Force Base.
Yeah, Brett Christensen with Hill Air Force Base here.
Thank you, Brett. Hooper. Kaysville. Layton.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Mindy Hunsaker, Engineering.
And Mayor Joy Petro here with Councilmember Dave Thomas.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Joellen Grandy with Parks and Rec.
Wonderful. Thanks. Anyone from Marriott Slaterville? Mida? North Ogden? North Salt Lake?
Allie Avery. I think we got Sherry Pace and Mackenzie Johnson as well.
Thank you, Allie. Allie's our vice chair, so. Anyone else from Ogden here? I think we do.
Yeah, Brandon Rippian, I'm here.
Perry. Plain City. Pleasant View. Riverdale. Roy.
Steve Parkinson with Roy.
Hello, Steve. Thanks for joining. South Ogden. South Weaver. Sunset. Syracuse.
Royce Davies here with Syracuse.
Thank you. Uinta? Washington Terrace? Well, Weber County.
Commissioner Sharon Bolo here from Weber County.
Thank you for joining us, Commissioner. West Bountiful.
Chris Nielsen, West Bountiful.
West Haven. West Point.
Bryn McDonald from West Point.
Willard. Woods Cross. Anyone from UDOT?
Stephanie Tomlin, UDOT.
Christopher Chestnut from UDOT.
And UTA?
Michelle Larson from UTA.
FHWA? And last but not least, WFRC.
I'll throw out everybody's name for time's sake. Jordan Chandler, Ted Knowlton, Jory Johnner, Julie Bjornstad, Hugh Van Wagenen, Lauren Victor, Jerrison Atkin, Marshall White. And I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. So we'll start with the minutes. They were sent out. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the April 26th meeting.
This is Dave from Farmington. I move that we approve the minutes
Thank
from
you,
the
Dave.
April 26th meeting.
For a second.
I'll second. This is Ally with North Salt Lake.
Okay, thank you. So this is the way we vote here. If you're in favor, everyone in favor, stay silent. Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, we'll consider those approved. So we're going to move to TTIF project nomination. Who's doing this, Jory?
Steph Tomlin.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Steph.
Hi, thank you. Thanks, everyone. So yeah, Stephanie Tomlin with UDOT. My position over at UDOT is I'm the Trails Division leader. So UDOT just created a new division for Trails and Transit. So I oversee the trails portion of that with the newly allocated funding, the $45 million ongoing dollars that the legislature just allocated. But I'm not actually here to talk about that. My previous role at UDOT was overseeing the project prioritization process for the TIF and the TTIF funding. So I'm here to talk about that because it's exciting. Our nomination window is open right now. So I want to start first by just quickly going through what is TIF and what is TTIF, and then we'll jump into a couple of changes that occurred in the last legislative session that are relevant to bring up, and then we'll talk about the nominations. I'll try and keep this to about 10 minutes, and I really appreciate everyone's time. So TIF stands for the Transportation Investment Fund. This is a very large pot of funding that UDOT uses to build big capacity projects. So this is both in the highway space, but then also in active transportation and transit. So there are 4 programs that make up TIF and TTIF. So within the TIF, there's the TIF Active, which is active transportation projects. They must be paved and they must demonstrate a congestion reduction on a state facility. And then they require a 40% match from the local community. Then there's the TIF Highway. So these are highway projects. There's more specifics about highway that I don't necessarily want to get into, but I'm happy to field any questions at the end if there are specifics about highway. But generally speaking, it's we take phase 1 projects from each area's regional transportation plan that are over $5 million, and those automatically get put into the input list for funding consideration. To be clear, not that we fund every single project on phase one, we only could wish, right? But those are the automatic inputs that then we evaluate and then make a recommendation for funding. So that makes up TIF. And then we have TTIF, which stands for Transit Transportation Investment Fund. And within that program, we have, again, two separate funding pools. One is TTIF Transit. So this is for transit projects. That has a similar input process as highway. We take phase one projects. But then the other one is TTIF First and Last Mile. So these are active transportation projects that make a direct connection to a transit stop or station. These facilities also have to be paved, but they don't need to demonstrate a congestion reduction on a state facility. What's worth noting about TTIF, and I will get into this a little bit more when I jump into the website, but this one did have a pretty notable change this last legislative session. This funding pool now requires a 30% match instead of a 40% match. So last round, in previous funding cycles, it's been a 40% match, but the legislature just reduced that match. So the burden is now less for communities. So those are the two, the TIF and the TTIF. Again, just a kind of brief overview. So at this point, I'm going to share my screen and show the project prioritization website. And oh, sorry, did someone? Oh, it looks like Shauna jumped in. So let me put the link to this website. I believe it's in the agenda, but I'll just put it in the chat as well so people can kind of follow along as I go. So let me pull up. And it looks like it's sharing, looks like it's on the website. So this is projectprioritization.udot.utah.gov. So this is really everything and anything that relates to the prioritization process that we use to evaluate projects being considered for TIF and TTIF. So really, this should have everything you need on it. And in fact, if it doesn't, please feel free to reach out because that's the intention of this, and we can certainly add information as necessary. But again, if you want some more information about what TIF and TTIF is, there's links to the bills and the codes that go into this. There's the model documentation, and I'll get to this in 1 second, but this is we have a model, a data-driven process and model that we use to rank projects for funding consideration, because of course, unfortunately, we don't have enough money to build everything. But then if you're interested in seeing the current ranked lists, there's a link to that. And then worth pointing out here is there's now specific requirements about moderate income housing compliance status that the legislature decided that, or decided that we need to take this into more consideration in our model. So this outlines kind of the moderate income housing, and then it has a map showing compliance status by community. And this is something we just get from the Division of Workforce Services. We do not create this on our own. At the bottom of the page, you can see here we have a submit questions or comments. This is a great, we check this regularly. So if any questions come up after this call, feel free and submit something here, and someone from our team will try and get back to you right away. So that then I'll kind of move to the right here. This gets into model documentation. So as I alluded to, we can't fund everything. So we have a model that we use that looks at different data associated with each one of the projects, and it creates a ranked list. So if you're curious about what goes into that, in that model, when you're thinking about projects to nominate, we have that information outlined here. we're in the middle of an update process, and we've worked very closely with our MPO partners on this. So this isn't actually officially adopted. We're hoping to have it adopted at the August Transportation Commission. But I think, if as long as everything goes through okay, this will be our new model process. So anyone's welcome to take a look at that. And then the fun part, right? Like up top, you can see here, there's the banner. And if you click here, it takes you to this nominations page. So nominations are open from June 26th through August 31st. And I recognize some people on this call because I know you've nominated projects. So hopefully this isn't kind of new information, but I think this website and kind of how we have everything laid out is probably new. But yeah, so this is where you come to actually nominate the projects. But let's actually start here on the FAQ page because there's some really great resources here. If you maybe haven't nominated a project before and you're like, what, when you say active transportation projects, what does that mean? What are the eligibility requirements? Well, you can come here. And you can see under eligibility require, we outline every single thing that needs to be met in order to be eligible, including the match amounts, but we also articulate what can be used as a match amount. And then again, I just want to reemphasize the fact that for anything under the TTIF program, that match amount was reduced to 30%. So anyway, there's things of this nature, but then also if you're like, what's a successful project? Like, if I'm thinking about everything else considered or everything else equal, like what would be a more potentially successful project? We even kind of articulate that on this. So anyway, please use the FAQ. I hope that can answer, general questions. But then to get to the actual nomination, it's pretty simple. And if you've done it before in the past, it's very similar. So you come here, and if you just click on any one of these icons, it'll pop open a Google form. And there on the bottom here, there's a link to the Google form in a PDF version, so you can see the full nomination form. And then again, kind of keeps bringing you or referencing back to this, the website for further questions. But this is where you can come and nominate the project. Something that I wanted to note that's a change from last round is that if you have nominated a project in the past and it didn't get funded, but you're still interested in having it considered. In past years, we've actually said that you don't need to renominate it, but this year, since we have an updated model and a new process, we ask that everything get renominated this round. It was getting a little bit cumbersome to pull projects through if they were nominated, like some of them we had all the way back from like 2020. So it's easier, or we're hoping to just do a big refresh, and we kind of anticipate that this is the way it's going to be moving forward, that any new project you'd like considered to renominate it. And gives you an opportunity to update the costs and all of that. So I think it's kind of a beneficial thing all around. I will say that then the forms are not very difficult to fill out. We don't ask for all this really detailed information at this phase. Generally a project description, a little bit of a narrative around it, and then some information on available cost. So with that, I'm going to pause, and if there's any questions about it, I'd be happy to try and respond to them.
Hey,
Stephanie, this is Allie with North Salt Lake.
Hi, Allie.
Hi. So you're going to be doing the newly allocated trail funds as well. Are you still going to be managing these grants and doing the new trail funding?
Right, yeah. Why have one job when you can have two?
Well,
Yeah,
I was going to comment that you're doing this really well, so I wouldn't be surprised if they added more on. Because I could tell that coming from a grant writer, like you covered all the bases in this, and you do.
Oh, that's great.
And you've been great to work with. So I'm hoping that you're also doing the allocation of the trail funding as well.
So yeah, I think so what I'm sharing kind of on the screen now, this stays in planning. And I'm actually now in my new position as the director of the Trails Division. I'm moving into a whole new division within UDOT. It's a new division, so we don't even know kind of where we are exactly yet. But I will kind of phase out of involvement with this within the project prioritization process. That being said, rest assured we'll get someone else kind of in place within this. It's a big enough effort that I know that there will be someone kind of overseeing the communication portion of this. I'm very excited about this new update process and the fact that I feel really good about where we're landing with a new model that I think really represents like what's most important about these 4 programs. So I guess I would just put that out there as I think everything's in good hands there. And hopefully we get to a point where this process is somewhat self-sustaining, where it's like we have a cadence where every year, the nominations open at a certain time, and then, we get the inputs and then run through the data and stuff like that. So that's a long answer. The short answer is I won't be involved in this, moving forward, but until someone else is identified, I think, feel free and reach out to me, and I can certainly kind of connect you. And I know Jory mentioned this earlier today, like reach out to someone at WFRC. They've been really closely involved in this process as well, and can kind of get you connected to the right person over at UDOT. But yeah, so yes and no.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I'd even, I think I'd push or recommend, if the local communities are on the fence of applying for a project or getting their name or their project kind of in the hopper or ranked against the other projects statewide, get it in there. Like, I don't think it's guaranteed that, this will be programmed yearly. I don't think it's even guaranteed it'll be programmed this year. And I think everybody should know also that the TIF active and the TTIF first last mile, there's not a set amount that the commission programs. And so, if I recall, most all of the first last mile projects, the last time that they were programmed, were programmed. Now there's no guarantee. I know that, that the commission will fund 15 out of the 16 or whatever it was. It was some pretty significant amount, but this is a great opportunity, and it doesn't come around. And the more projects that are out there that are in the project list, it also shows our representatives at the legislature and our commission, the Transportation Commission, that there is a need from the local communities to fund these types of projects. So get them in there. It could be the open nomination now, and then programmed for the next 2 years based on that. Who knows, right? So like it's kind of an unknown, and I think you've been pretty open with that, with the process. But just want to put that out there, and hit us up. Hugh's been involved, I've been involved, Julie's been involved with this with UDOT, so we can help answer questions. If you have questions on even the match components, right? Like that's a little tricky, and the percentages are different, and soft matches versus funding matches, things like that. So go through that FAQ that you guys have put together, a lot of good info, and reach out, but take advantage of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great plug for it, Jory. I think, I will say though, have been on the backside a little bit of it. I think there's, I would just definitely encourage thinking pretty carefully about the cost. Yeah, it's like we fund a project at a certain amount, and I know that that's where I've just seen things get a little bit like, the change, or if there's updates in cost. So just take a little bit of time up front and try and get that cost as locked in as you possibly can, because that's the amount that we'll use on there. But yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. Like, this isn't supposed to be a a hard like process where we're not here to help if there's questions that come up. So yeah, we're really excited. I've already seen nominations, start rolling in. So just encourage you to nominate or reach out, and there's to W4C or UDOT. So yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate that. Okay, so the next item on our agenda, we put the local community highlight, and just an introduction of why we did this. So I've participated in these sort of regional groups in different parts of the country, and I found we often just sit in our own little bubble and we don't know what's going on beyond the walls of our own office or beyond the city limits of our own cities. And I found it's really valuable to just share what's going on so we know what's other cities are doing. I'm sure there's lots of cities and counties that are doing really great work, but if we don't know about it, then we can't copy it. So just as an example, I just thought about the presentation I made to our city council last night, and I showed pictures of 2 different projects and said, hey, we ought to do something like this. These are really great projects. And both those projects were things that I had looked at and tours that we've gone on in these sort of regional groups. And I said, oh, that's really good. We should do that. So, so that's why we want to do that. And we want to have every meeting have a community highlight. We'll nominate people to do that. And in fact, just as a plug for next month's meeting in September, we want to have somebody host that meeting in person and do a community highlight. So start thinking about that. So I'm going to share some things that are going on in Ogden because there are just tons of great stuff going on. Yes. All right, so Ogden, recently we adopted what's called the Make Ogden Downtown Plan. And sort of a preface to this plan, we did a study, we hired Urban 3 to look at our community and see, what are the values coming from? And they did this great graphic that shows just the property value per acre. And as you can see, downtown Ogden's some of the highest value property in all of Weber County. And you can see the sort of residential subdivision spots that are far lower value. And this gave us a really good picture of what's really buttering our bread, so to speak. Where are we getting our money? And if we want to generate value in the community in the future, the kind of development that we need to support. In that, we also have a ton of tax exempt land in Ogden, both city and county and state and federal and UTA, and we have Union Pacific and schools, we have a university and all these other uses that take up a lot of land, but don't generate any property tax. We also did a parking study of our downtown, and this is a graphic that shows where we are, and this is the busiest time in an afternoon that we could find. And the reds are areas that were 85 to 100% full. You see that's not very much. All the yellows are like 51 to 75%, and you can see, greens and blues. Blues are under 25%. So overall, we saw that our busiest time, 60% of the parking in downtown Ogden is actually being used. So we saw that as a real issue, that we have a lot of land taken up by parking, but not really being used for anything. So that came to this financial analysis. And the yellow line is just a projection of our expenditures as a city over time, and anticipating those will go up. And kind of the blue and the gray was business as usual, just as if we didn't do anything, where our revenues would be versus our expenses, and you see there's a big gap there. And it's just the fact that things get more expensive over time. Roads get old, sewer lines get old, you know, it costs more for police, fire, etc. So there was a big gap projected in there. So the way we looked at bridging that gap was the Make Ogden plan, to promote a lot more development, a lot more density, a lot more property value in downtown, and how to take advantage of these properties that are really underproducing because they're just parking lots or non-taxable properties. And part of the keys of this were increasing the walkability of downtown, substantially increasing the jobs in downtown, doing a very substantial increase in housing density, and netting a increase in taxable value of 175% over the next 25 years. And to do that, the city would take the lead with some catalytic projects that would really set the tone for the type and scale of development that could happen, and use those to spur other investment in downtown. So this is what the plan looks like. This is what Ogden in 20-25 years will look like. You see there's a lot more density. If you're familiar with Ogden, a lot more development, a lot of improvements, art, a very walkable community, preserving the things that are special about Ogden. Here's another picture from what we're envisioning on the other side. And if you just look at these buildings on the left side, all these are, those are all surface parking lots right now. So the idea is to make those properties that aren't generating any value and make them generate value in a very dense downtown. Here's a list of map of the various catalytic projects we're proposing. And I'll highlight a few of those. So kind of the first step we've done is adopted new zoning standards for our downtown that reflect the plan. The zoning standards have a lot of ground floor commercial, at least on the main roads, and doing upper floor, either office or residential. The standards require you build right to front property line, so no more of this 20-foot setback with lawn that just needs to be watered. Very generous heights, minimum floor area ratios. So, we don't want single-story buildings, we want multi-story. And the big avant-garde provision is there's zero parking requirement for non-residential uses. So if you want to build a 5-story office and you think you need 40 parking spaces, then build 40. If you think you need 2, build 2. Whatever you want is what we're going to approve. So there are plans for several parking structures in downtown that would accommodate the parking. So first catalytic project that's been approved and should get under construction fairly soon here is the Wonder Block. This was a old Wonder Bread Hostess bakery right taking up a block of our downtown, and it's planned to be redeveloped with 350 some odd dwelling units, about 140,000 square feet of retail, a grocery store. I think it's 200,000 square feet of office. About a 700 space parking lot that will be used for all downtown, and then another 200 space parking structure that will be used specifically for the buildings. So very cool project. Very excited to have this happen. Another very important project we're working on is Union Station. Union Station is really the heart of Ogden. It's celebrating its 100th anniversary, and it's really why Ogden is Ogden. And as you see on this picture, though, just how little utilized the land is around there. You have a lot of railroad land. You have UDOT front runner station, which is just a big surface parking lot that is, I think at most, we're seeing about 50% full, so good partnership with the UTA and the city, and we have a development partner to do a redevelopment of the Union Station area. Definitely preserving the campus. There's a museum in the campus, and we want to develop a new museum. And this is just an artist rendering of what this area could be. A lot of plans are getting revised, but you can see with new office uses, looking at hotel, residential uses, commercial, retail, restaurants, looking at some business partners to do their office campus there. So very exciting project. So we have a partner that we're working with to do the redevelopment here, and they've started a series of community meetings to develop their final plan. Of course, we have the OGX, the bus rapid transit going from downtown to McCady Hospital and Weber State, which it's under construction now and should be opening soon. Also mentioned parking. We're going to paid parking in the downtown. As you notice, the parking study we showed very low utilization of parking, but there are key places where it is very used. And so paid parking is intended to disperse the parking so that not everybody wants to park right in this front of that restaurant that really needs it. You can go park in the parking structure, and also to have the people that are using the parking, they're coming out of town, fund it rather than it all being funded by Ogden residents. 25th Street is on the American Planning Association's list of great streets. And we are looking at a project to just do a refresh. Just need some TLC with improving the sidewalks and the trees and street features. And we're looking at potential reconfigurations, but that's a project that's on our list here. Electric Alley is behind 25th Street. 25th Street would be on the right side of your screen there. So this would be a very exciting project. This is, again, a surface parking lot in downtown, and looking at doing a much more dense project right in the middle of our downtown. We have the 9 Rails Creative District, which is on the east end of downtown with the City Hall and headed east from here. There's a number of projects planned for this creative district, both streetscape and programs, and we have museums and other uses in there. And this is a recent project that was completed, the Dumpke Arts Center, Dumpke Arts Plaza, right in the middle of our downtown. And we have developed art standards for development. We've actually have 4 projects recently being developed, and all of them have a required art element. And so we're seeing some very interesting art being included in our arts district. So tons of stuff, exciting stuff happening in Ogden. And so anybody wants to talk to me more about it, I'd be happy to share. So any questions for me?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
I think in your general plan and some slides earlier, the City Hall block.
Yes.
Looked like you guys were getting rid of the jail from behind it.
Well, we would love to get rid of the jail. Yes, it is. And there
Yeah,
are
just not
lots of Weber County. I know that is a discussion. It's a Weber County facility, so
Right.
they've talked about relocating it. We would like to have it
Okay,
relocated. We have this incredible Art Deco municipal building, and then we have this really ugly jail right behind it that just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I just noticed the auditorium was facing the wrong direction, so I was scratching my head.
Yes, yes. We would love
Oh.
to do that, so,
Pretty cool.
yes. You know, we got our Weber County Commissioner here, so we appreciate you, and we'll be happy to work with you.
This is Dave from Farmington. This is such a cool plan. Holy cow. Anyway, that's my comment.
Thank you. All right, let's move on. No, don't want to take too long on the agenda here. And pull back up mine. We're going to Ted with Wasatch Choice Street Typology Map Review.
Okay, thanks a lot, Barton. I appreciate that. And that's, man, I love that story as well of what's happening in Ogden. You were talking about 25th Street as a great street. Part of the reason why it's great is that the street itself is designed and functions to complement that main street fabric. They work together, right? If any one of us takes a minute and we think about our favorite main street, wherever it is, think about how the street is designed and functions and how it fits. Now, it's a hard challenge to retrofit or create that in a new street. Why? Often it's because there are lots of parties involved in working out a good fit between a street's design and function and its surrounding context. You know, we have a term in planning for this. It's called context-sensitive design. Well, the idea behind this Wasatch Choice Great Streets framework is, can we together put forward a starting point to have a conversation across partners whereby we can sort of coalesce a bit around how do we, through time, through modification, create more great streets in the places where it makes the most sense by having a good fit between street design and function and adjacent context. Now, where I'm going here is that we have a draft of this product and we'd like to get your feedback. It'll be a collective product. But before I get into the nature of that input, let me just give you a tiny bit of context. So I've already been talking about this, but I think that the concept of context sensitivity is told pretty well on University Avenue. You know, it's one road there in Provo, but the context in the upper image is a lot different than the context in the bottom image. They really are different places. The lower image is downtown Provo and there's bus rapid transit. And the upper image, it's more of a suburban context. Even though there's a person walking, you would expect a lot more people to be walking in the lower image, that kind of thing. Now, this is a research-driven finding. When there is good context sensitivity, there are fewer accidents and fatalities, and there is more economic product. The streets have more economic productivity. Now, the whole transportation industry and every city I know cares about these two things, safety and economic development. So we should be able to coalesce behind these two things as drivers for improving context sensitivity. Now, when we're talking about the Wasatch Choice Great Streets, it is a collaborative product. UDOT's at the table, UTA, Mountain Land, and Utah County, the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, WFRC, all of these entities are kind of participating, but really it's about all of us coming together, and I think it's almost fair to say the most important thing is that local governments feel like, yeah, this is useful. This is a great place to start a conversation. And I'll come back to that phrase, start a conversation. This is not intended to dictate to anybody what they ought to do, but it is intended to improve kind of a little bit, establish a shared expectation of what are the locations in which we should work to improve context sensitivity locations, and B, in those locations, what is the starting point? Let's call it a typology. What is the design treatment principles that are just the starting point for that conversation? Now, we were talking about this and working this through with some of you, with the partners, and we together coalesced around the idea of, hey, why don't we just start with the Wasatch Choice Centers? Wasatch Choice Centers are places where you have said, look, these are places where we want to create a sense of place. We want to create walkability. They're going to be places of focused activity. And if that's where you have said you want to go, and it has formal weight, right? Wasatch Choice vision has been adopted, then it can be a shared place for partners to say, okay, these are locations where we ought to work on context sensitivity. Okay, so here are the street types. I only have a couple more slides. The street types are organized around, is the street more pedestrian oriented or is it more automobile oriented? Within the centers. So you've got main streets, hybrid between a main street and a major corridor, sort of a corridor and a major corridor. Now, the details on these, you can look at them on your own in a document. I will just show you a little bit of the document, and then there's a supporting street. And so the idea is, if this is a little diagram that is a Wasatch Choice Center, maybe it's a piece of downtown Ogden. Maybe it is a piece of let's just say Farmington Station, right? It's a piece of Farmington Station. Here you go. You know, there you might have a major corridor that it needs to move more freight. It needs to move more traffic. And you've got a main street that you want to focus on creating a highly walkable activity. And you've got a couple of hybrid streets, and you've got supporting streets that they're sort of not as critically important for either placemaking or freight, but they play a supporting role. And let's talk about, you know, let's identify those on a map as a starting point for the conversation. I'll pop open the document that illustrates these types, and I'm not going to go through it in detail. I just want to give you a taste so that you'll take a look at it. In the document, there is an illustration of each type. There are principles of what each type is working on. You know, here it says, number one, emphasize regional transportation needs, prioritize that, but balance with local community context needs for this type. There are examples, both local and not local. And then it breaks it down a little bit. What are those elements of the context that make it a corridor? What are those elements of the right-of-way design and function that fit with that context? There's the corridor. You know, here's a kind of a breakdown a little bit. And then, you know, here's the opposite end of it, of a main street. And it just gives you a taste of the difference here and how this is put forward and how this works. Take a look at that more when you have some time. And then I will just kind of, I'm rounding third base on this. All right, I'm almost done. Jordan has by now, or will shortly, put a link into this interface, this interactive map. This is just intended to gather comments from you. You click on any one of those segments and it asks you what your comments are. You can say, hey, this is the wrong type. It should be fill in the blank or what have you. Quick note, we just took a stab at, this is a good faith effort to start the conversation with you about maybe what the street type ought to be. Look, I'm sure we've gotten it wrong, so don't take any offense or feel awkward at all, of course, about suggesting what you think the street types ought to be. It's just easier to comment on a first draft than it is to make the first draft. That's the whole idea. Now, we'd love to get comments back from you by July 21st. If you need more time, just say, hey, we need more time. Not a problem. And then I'm going to open it up for any questions or comments that you've got on this. And I just want to highlight that this is an evolving product. We anticipate kind of tweaking this over time, working with you. I will say UDOT is also doing some deep dive into what they do as an organization. As we learn what they're doing, we may revise this just so that things are sort of consistent with each other. So we will learn from you as you look at this, kick the tires on it, what you think ought to change, etc. The Transportation Land Use Connection Program can be a way for you to test drive this, and if you're willing, and or just plain, feel like, hey, look, it's maybe a better time for us to tackle this now because there's a new framework and there's more interest from parties, including WFRC and UDOT, to roll up sleeves and figure out how we can help make this happen. So it's a great time for you to ask this question. Hey, how do we make these changes over time to improve the context sensitivity of the streets in our key places in our communities? And that is the Dog and Pony Show, ladies and gentlemen. What questions might you have? I'm always grateful that I wasn't on mute.
I would have flagged you. I would have done this.
And this is Weston.
Hi, Weston.
Hey, I don't really have any questions right now, but that looks good. I'm looking forward to going through it. We're doing a town center plan for one of our town center areas. That's kind of some of the information I was looking for. So I'm excited. Thank you.
Sweet. That's great.
All right. Thank you, Ted. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, Hugh is going to talk about Golden Wheels Bike Network and Sandy Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see, I think screen is sharing. So keeping on this theme, Ted was just talking about as far as looking at centers. One of the things that we've been kicking around at our agency for a little while and been interested to take up is something that we're calling temporarily the Golden Wheels Bike Network. Originally, that was a take on the Golden Spoke Network that hopefully everybody's familiar with. But thinking, what's the next sort of big thing that we can talk about regionally? And we would really love and are going to start exploring more direct active transportation connections between centers. Again, centers map on the screen. Ted was just showing some of that, and how to make these destinations that are within centers, because they're more compact, there are more destinations, there are more services there, more ability, more mobility options there than other places, and how do we have direct, comfortable, and safe active transportation connections between centers so people can move between these centers effectively, efficiently, and directly. So this is something that we think will really starting to get legs now, but will really take off this fall. I wanted to just give you a heads up about it, get it on your radar, and would love it if folks are, if you're interested in being a little bit closer to this than the typical outreach that we will do with you and with this committee and with your communities, building off your local active transportation plans, building off the regional transportation plan. Please send me an email, shoot it in the chat right now that, yes, I'd love to be more involved in this, what is now being called the Golden Wheels, but sure to change. And we'd love to have you involved in that. So that's just a little preview and a heads up. Some of you may be asking, wait a second, didn't UDOT just talked about this Utah Trails Network, right? Steph is here, the new Trails Division leader. And just to be clear, these will be two separate efforts that will dovetail together and will be complementary to one another. So we'll work closely with Stephanie and her team moving forward, just to see how this all pans out. But again, really focused on these center to center connections throughout the region, not necessarily meaning that every center will be connected to every other center, but looking at those that makes sense. So the second item is a Sandy mat. By raise of hands, does anybody know what the term MAT stands for? Euler. No, it's fine. I know several of you have probably been on one of these before, but the MAT, M-A-T-T, is a mobile active transportation tour, and something that we've done with our partners over several years. And we do these both locally and we've done them out of state. But it's an opportunity to get together with your peers and to go and actually experience, right, on the ground infrastructure now. And in the case of Sandy, we'll be touring the Cairns district, so their downtown district, meeting at the Sandy Civic Expo station, track station. So you can take transit right there. If you're coming from the north, where all of you would be coming, you can take Front Runner tracks and meet us there. And Sandy City has acquired e-scooters and e-bikes for participants, if you'd like that. And I'll put in the sign up information, and it's going to be August 11th, Friday, August 11th at 8:30 a.m. So a little bit of an early call for some of you northern folks, but again, it's great to see, get out in the field, chat with our peers, see some of the successes, understand some of the challenges, and brainstorm a little bit together and get some fresh air. So, and just for future, if you or any of your cities are interested in hosting a MAT, inviting people out to see what y'all are up to, pedestrian and biking work, we'd love to help coordinate that with you. We do these in conjunction with Bike Utah, and they're a lot of fun and informational. So thanks, Barton. I'll just throw some of that stuff in the chat, and if people have questions, just reach out to me directly. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that, Hugh. Okay, and we'll move to Marcia on transportation land use connection.
Thanks, Chair. I am excited. I'm glad that people are liking what's going on in Ogden as a proud resident of Ogden. So
yes,
yay, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen here. So I just want to go over the transportation and land use connection program that we have at WFRC. We have some really great partners. We partner, UDOT's our partner, UTA, Salt Lake County, and then obviously we are a partner in this. And what this program does is it supports local governments with their planning efforts and all around the Wasatch Choice Vision. So it's an opportunity for cities to apply for some funding. We get about $1.9 million in annual funding. So we're always excited to explain what this program is. We have some goals. The maximum value of this investment is obviously public infrastructure. We want to enhance access to opportunities. We want to create great travel options and optimize that mobility. And then creating communities where people live, work, and play is really important to us. Just quickly, we try to meet cities where they're at. So if you have ideas about plans, or if you have ideas about, changing policy, or even implementation of products, this is a really great funding opportunity for your city to apply for. Just briefly, I'm going to go over the timeline. We're right in the middle of doing that project exploration. So bouncing ideas off of us, trying to figure out if those are great projects or not great projects, or will it fit into this TLC program? So that's what we would love to hear from you right now. In the fall, letters of intent are due, and those are really not, you don't have to have them fully baked quite yet, but just a letter of intent saying, this is what I think our project could be done and how what the project looks like. And then by winter, then that full application is due. So just to, right now we're just kicking it off. It takes a while for us to meet with everybody that has questions, but yeah, give us a call and we'll go through your project and see if we can put you on the list. With that, I will put my email in the chat, but if there's somebody that wants to reach out to me or any of our other CED folks, Christy Dahlberg, Megan Townsend, Michaela Jordan, we're all here to answer any questions. Are there any questions right now? Okay, if there's no questions, that means everybody knows what the TLC program is. There's quite a few of you online that have and are currently using it. So, and it's not a one and done. So if you have, another project this year and you're working through a project from last year, no worries. Just throw it out there for us. That's all I have. Back to you, Chair.
All right, thank you. We love your money. Thank you. All right, so now we're on to other business. Ted, you're going to talk about guiding our growth.
Brief update here. I think that you're all familiar with the guiding our growth process. I hope this is convened by the governor, and the idea is that given the fact that we've been among the fastest growing states for actually 40 years, let's have the conversation not about how much we grow, but how do we handle growth in a way that maintains our quality of life. And it's been a 3-phase process. We're in the middle of the second phase, and I'll just spend 1 minute on that. But the first phase was, hey, let's go around the state. Envision Utah led this process to listen for what are the key issues to deal with. These are familiar: housing affordability, water, transportation and traffic, and the availability of parks and open space. The second phase has been, how should we, the royal we, resolve or improve those issues with the way that we grow. And so there's a questionnaire out there through the Guiding Our Growth website. Somebody is going to put the link into the chat for that. Why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because I think for planners, there's a couple of key things to think about right now. This survey is going to be up until the end of August. While it is up, if your community hasn't taken a chance to spread that information to your residents, it's a missed opportunity, because it'll be really interesting, I think, for you to get a sense of where do your residents stand on how they would resolve these things. It's approaches to growth. It's also policy ideas. And so, one, please, if you will, send it out. We'll follow up this meeting with some materials that make it easy, templates that make it easy to put in your newsletter or send out an email. And then the second thing that I think is relevant for planners is, this kind of stuff can be helpful for you, especially for like a general plan. It could be. And so I just wanted to make that special plug that way. Is there anybody here that is engaged in this on one of the committees that wants to also chime in? I'll pause there, and then otherwise, Mr. Chair, that is everything on this update.
I'll just chime in that I know we had a presentation on this to our city council and to our planning commission, and it was good discussion. And we encouraged all of them to fill out the survey.
Very cool. We'll share the full results, maybe at the very next technical this meeting, and we'll send them out and you'll hear a lot about it. The third phase is so what do we all do now that we've heard from Utahns? How do we move forward? And I think that that'll be kind of a smaller conversations that occur around the state. And so stay tuned, more to come.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, turn it over to Hugh for raise grant update.
Yeah, Ted and I are just sort of like tagging back and forth in and out of the ring here. Thanks, Barton. For those that haven't heard, our region was awarded a raise grant, which is a federal discretionary grant. Raise your hand if you can spell out that acronym. We've moved on from Matt to raise. Oh, Jory, actually, do you mind? Go for it. I want to see if you can do this. You're totally reading it and you're on mute, cheater.
I heard you say, did you want me to spell it out? Or
R-A-I, okay, never
Oh,
move on.
Ted got it. Reading an interesting story about everything. Come on.
Yeah. So this was a pretty big deal. There's a lot of work and effort that went on between the partners to get this grant. UDOT was the lead applicant, along with UTA, ourselves, MAG, and there were 9 cities involved, 15 projects that focused on first and last mile connections to transit, both bus stops and transit stations, fixed rail transit stations, focused on traditionally underserved and under-resourced areas around those stations. Ogden was one of the recipients, and about $31 million worth of projects, and the raise grants covering about $25 million worth of those projects. And not just in Ogden, that's overall. And so excited about that. The last time that something similar was this was formerly called the Tiger Grant. Those of you that were involved are familiar with that, now called RAISE. So again, just a nice win for the region, and be great to improve these connections to, especially in y'all's case, the Ogden Bus Rapid Transit, which we know is kicking off here relatively shortly. So always looking to improve connections to our transit. The RAISE grant itself is not focused on first last mile projects or transit specifically. That was just an approach that the application team took to try and win the award. And again, really happy that they were successful in doing that, and we'll see when things get constructed after contracts get signed and whatnot, and moving forward. But again, congrats to Ogden and to the region generally for obtaining this RAISE grant, and it sheds good light on our region generally, and the work that we're all doing together.
Okay, questions for Hugh? All right, so we'll move on. The next topic I put on the agenda is just a potential future topics discussion. So, this is really our meeting, and WFRC can put items on the agenda all day long and we can talk about those, but I think there's a real value in just us talking. If there's issues that are coming up in your community or things that you want to discuss or get more information on, love to put it on the agenda. I put a couple of topics that I know we're dealing with short-term rentals, and probably a lot of other people are. The moderate income housing reports we could put that on. Or is there something that you think you'd like to see on a future agenda that we might spend 10 or 15 minutes just sharing ideas about, or get a speaker on?
Part I'd add, or encourage communities to think, or even our transportation partners, help us help you, right? Like, we create these agendas sometimes with the lens of WFRC, needing help reviewing RTP stuff or Wasatch Choice Vision or TLC program, economic development. But there are a lot of things that I think, you know, you could help us generate ideas that could be of interest to, you know, you as local communities. You know, you wouldn't necessarily be on the hook to have to, you know, develop it, the presentation, or even find the presenter. We could do that on the back end, but, you know, looking for a good mix of, you know, us bringing information to you that we think is interesting, but, you know, you helping us with those ideas. So just want to plug that a little bit, Bart.
You put it in the chat if you don't want to speak up.
I would like, this is Dave again from Farmington. I would like to mention something, but if I do, I'm afraid I'm going to be pigeonholed as a one-trick pony, you know, that.
Okay,
But
this is a
I'm much
safe,
more.
safe space, so you just said you're not volunteering yourself.
I'm a more complex person than just this one issue, but I think outdoor advertising would be good to revisit.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, I'd be happy to spearhead something like that too. And I like your idea about short-term rentals. Absolutely. Here's one more too. The townhomes. What's the latest on townhomes? And, you know, we've seen some pretty cool townhomes that we've driven around and looked at. And we've also seen, you know, the standard conventional run-of-the-mill townhomes. It'd be, not all townhomes are created equal. It'd be kind of interesting to just dive into that and see what is happening in other cities. I know in Ogden, one of our city council members took a picture of some townhomes in downtown area, and we loved them. And we're always getting pressured for more townhomes. And so it would be kind of cool to see what other communities are doing.
Okay, great. Yeah, I know we took a tour around our neighboring cities, and I won't mention the city we went to, but our commission said never let that happen. So, but we also saw some pretty cool ones too.
Was that in Roy?
This is a safe space. I'm not calling anybody.
Also, historic preservation is always a good topic as well. And what communities are doing out there regarding
Good. Okay.
I had a couple things.
Yes.
One of them we've talked about is micromobility, and how we can effectively extend that across city boundaries. So have like a big comprehensive micromobility plan for the whole county, you know, or the whole region, because right now they just stop at the city boundary line because none of our surrounding cities have it. So that was one of them. And then I got voluntold this morning to be on a steering committee for the Safe Streets for All action plan. And so I think that might be helpful. They're looking for people to be in the geographic focus area meetings from each of the municipalities. So that might be helpful to have Kip and Wayne from WFRC maybe do a short presentation on what that is, so that cities can start thinking about who they should have on that in that focus area committee. So yeah, just a couple things. And then it might be helpful to have like the U or the Utah Housing Coalition or somebody come and talk about where we're at with housing in the state as far as data.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we're filling out our moderate income housing report, and they're like asking us for data, and it's like we should get the data from you. So.
And also too, just the latest demographic trends too on the not necessarily housing, but just how fast are we aging and things like that.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. Okay, awesome. And we'll still have a few minutes. You can type something in the chat. These are great ideas. I really appreciate that. And we'll we'll work on putting these things on future agendas and getting people to talk about them. So. So we're down to next meeting. So I mentioned at the beginning, we're gonna have this meeting in person. We talked last time about should we do all virtual, all in person, or sort of mix, and so mix was the most popular. So the next one's gonna be in person on September 13th. We'd like a volunteer to host us. We'll need a room that would accommodate probably 15 people. PowerPoint and Zoom capabilities would be nice, and but make us get out of our offices and let's get together. So and we'd love for you to do a little community highlight while we're there, just maybe a 10-minute presentation on what's important in your community. So do I have a volunteer?
I nominate Farmington. I was going to volunteer North Salt Lake until I heard that we had to give a presentation, and then I was like,
Hey, if the new ride at Lagoon ever opens up, that'd be really cool for us to go ride it.
Yeah. Can we do it on the ride? Okay, Davis County. All right, good. It will be September 13th. So thank you, Chanel.
Of course, I'll get that on the calendar. Who do I work with on getting everything scheduled?
You could work with me, Chanel.
Okay.
Or
Sounds good.
actually would work with me and Jordan if you want to.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That'll be
And
great.
Allie, I thought you would definitely vote North Salt Lake because you and Sherry have been so vocal about not wanting to, leave your offices that, you would have just did a 15-minute presentation and not have to drive 15 minutes. But I see.
that's why I was gonna volunteer, and I was hovering over the unmute button until they said presentation, and then back up.
All right. So yes, we'll follow up with you, Chanel. Thank you very much for that. All right. Is there any other business that we need to bring up? All right. Hearing none. Is there any objection to adjourning? All right, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll see all of you September 13th in Davis County.
Hey, see y'all later.
Thanks,
Bye.
Barton. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.